Hi everyone, it's Dr. Jenny. I wanted to make a video talking about what might be coming in terms of a rebranding and also a project that I'm incubating right now. And it's definitely based off of all of the things that I have learned in my personal life and everything that has happened in my own spiritual journey. And I have not been that eager to discuss, especially in the past couple of years, everything that I have been through. The truth of the matter is I've been on this journey for like 12 freaking years. And like most people, you don't realize when you start your journey or you reach out to your therapist and need some help with anxiety, that you are embarking on a spiritual journey. And many people, ask what a spiritual journey is. And really all it is kind of coming back to who you really are. And for many people in North America and all over the world, that does mean healing a tremendous amount of trauma. It might mean that you're a lineage breaker in the family, so you came into this world to do the work of clearing karma for everyone in your family. And it is freaking hard and exhausting and super scary work. I'm not quite sure if anyone's truly, really honest about how much crap that they go through, because I think once you get to the point where you can write about it, you might forget some of those really just darker details. But we were, doing quite well, and then 2016 happens. And we are just past the 2020 election, so many of us have a little trauma from the 2016 election. But I don't know about you, but I feel like the trajectory of my career and my life and everything took a major detour starting in 2016. But I didn't really quite know what was going on. So from 2016 to 2018, I knew I wanted to leave traditional psychology, and I knew I was doing a lot of healing work and a lot of like trauma healing work related to some anxious attachment stuff and just some bad dating experiences and just some difficult relationships in my family. But when 2018 hits, and I think this might be the case for many, many women, so 2016 and then 2018, I ended up right after my brother got married, which was, by the way, at the San Diego Zoo, which is a beautiful venue. It's probably one of my favorite wedding memories of all time. A couple weeks later was my birthday in 2018, and I would normally do something different on my birthdays. Normally I'm in a different city or I like to travel, but there was something that I just wanted to go like horseback riding. I haven't been on a horse since I was 6. And that was a scary experience, and I felt like I just wanted to get back on a horse and kind of get over that fear. And it's not the first time that I have done that. When I went through the most traumatic breakup of my life that is talked about in my book, hopefully that's coming out in 2021, the way that I thought I healed from that relationship was taking horseback riding lessons. So there's something for me related to horses that I didn't really understand at that time what was percolating. So unfortunately, and here's our horse. We can call him, I don't know, we'll call him Bobby. Here's our horse, Bobby. And Bobby and I did not have a good day that day. I was probably really anxious and very emotional because I definitely had a lot of emotions stuck in my body but wasn't aware of it. And it was raining outside, and I didn't listen to my intuition that said, don't go. I had grabbed a cup of coffee beforehand, and something was telling me not to go, and my stubbornness and wanting to make something happen and my type A-ness kicked in, and I said, F it, I'm going to go anyway. Well, Bobby didn't like that, and he threw me off his back, which normally is not that big of a deal, but it led to the helmet cutting into my chin and 9 stitches later. And my first ever visit to the emergency room in my 30s. I'd never been to the emergency room as a kid. So what started to happen after that, first of all, I was completely alone in that experience. I was upstate New York, away from friends and family. That was a profound start to some very, very difficult parts of Dark Night of the Soul spiritual work. And what transpired, and most people just thought I spent the summer kind of recovering from this. What transpired is that a business that I was hoping to get off the ground was not going to get off the ground. It was the wrong timing. My body was just so exhausted. Health things that I thought I had dealt with started to come back. And there was just this really vicious urge, push to leave New York. And so between 2018 and the beginning of 2019, I really started freaking out and not sure what to do. And that's when I realized that the thing that I needed to do was to up-level my yoga. And truth be told, the up-leveling had started a few months before, but there was a studio that I was going to pretty consistently for restorative yoga for probably 3 years before this all happened. And it was September 2018 where I decided to take my yoga teacher training. And that was probably the most difficult experience I've ever been through. A complete loss of confidence, a complete loss of my ability to teach, a complete loss of just feeling like you've lost your entire being and your soul. And yet the staff at Ishta Yoga was so amazingly supportive that even though at that point could barely do half the poses, still made me think that I could do it. And then the community of people there was incredibly healing. And so it was at that time I started realizing, I feel like I'm starting to repeat some things through my life. The last person to tell me about yoga was my grandfather when I was in my early 20s, because I was so stressed out with trying to get into graduate school, he thought it might be helpful for me. So it took me a long time to kind of sit with that and realize that I kind of missed the boat earlier in life to learn the skills that I actually needed to learn to manage my emotions and my anxiety. And part of that was totally related to my ego of thinking that because if I became a psychologist, then I would know everything there is to know about anxiety and emotions, and we're just going to fix it. And then I'll know everything about my family and we'll just fix it. I think the universe is very wise, and I can laugh at all of this now because it's absurd, as they say. But you're in your 20s, you think you're going to do everything to change the world and that you know better, and yet there are people sending you messages that there might be a different way to go about it. So 2018 launched the yoga journey, which is ongoing, continuing, and now I teach. In 2019 is when the universe was like, you need to leave New York. And there were some really crazy things that happened that kind of forced me to leave. I had a crazy situation where the police kept showing up, and it was related to a family member that was really weird. There was some weird stuff going on in my apartment. Needless to say, getting out of the United States in 2019 was really helpful, and I started traveling. And so in 2019, I kind of in the beginning of the year, I think it was New Year's Eve 2019, set off to do some world traveling. And I was in Curacao, Panama, and then spent a lot of time in Argentina, where I tried to work on my tango And what I was really facing were my childhood fears and insecurities around the idea of performing, around the idea of being in my body, and around and being around just men in general. It would take a lot of healing work for me to fully understand that part of what was going on was that not only was I dealing with my own trauma, but I was dealing with kind of the collective trauma that was going on with women that started with #MeToo. And that so many women have had experiences of toxic relationships. So many women have lost their lives to domestic violence. So many women have just had really just horrible experiences that it's completely suppressed and kind of shut down who we are. And it's not, and I'm going to just caveat and say, it's not to say that men don't experience that, but I'm going to come back to that in a little bit. So bear with me. And part of my healing process to kind of reopen my heart and heal my heart, which so many of us desperately need, was through tango dancing. It wasn't in talk therapy. And part of the work was also done with a healer. And a lot of the darker work was done with a very experienced shaman in 2020. But what really started sparking the heart to open again for connection was tango dancing. So my time in Argentina was really important, not only for trying to heal that, but then I also wrote my book in 2019 and thought that when 2019 ended, just like you, thought that I was in a really, really magical place, that I was heading to 2020, totally ready to meet, the next great love of my life. Feeling pretty good that I would, figure out how to get this book published and out to you. And then I get back to New York in January, February 2020, and the energy of New York was so heavy and so dark that I knew I needed to leave because something bad was going to happen. And that something bad was Corona. So I ended up in Vancouver, Canada, and my coronavirus experience has been a deep dive into a spiritual awakening process that has on some days been very, very beautiful, and other days it's been really just not pretty and really, really hello messy. But one of the things that came out of all of those experiences is the realization, and I knew this when I was in the process of writing my book, the realization that I learned my spiritual lessons through the people I interact with. And many of those people have been my romantic connections. It's something that's actually in my astrology charts. Difficulties with relationships of all kinds is in my chart as something to master and overcome and to then teach to you. And so I'm doing that work. But one of the things that came out of this whole experience was when I took a job working at a child and adolescent clinic in the Vancouver area this past fall, was this 13-year-old girl who walked into my office. And she didn't look too happy and she didn't want to be there. And her parents were making her come in because they were really worried that she was choosing to date a 14-year-old boy with addiction issues. And I look at her and immediately could tell that she was highly creative and super smart. And I had this moment almost of and this does happen in the therapy, as a psychologist a lot, there are some clients that walk in and you're like, holy cow, that was me when I was their age. And then yes, you take that to your supervisor to process. So you keep your own stuff out of someone else's work. But there was something about her that made me reflect back to my teenage years. And I listened to her tell me her side of the story, because I had listened to her parents' side of the story. And it's, every parent's concern of, she's really young. I don't want her making any mistakes. She has a really promising dance career coming. She's really smart. I want her to achieve and do really well. It's what every parent wants for their child. And then in comes this beautiful being, full of light, not in a great mood that day. And she looked me in the eyes and said, I want to help him. And I sat there realizing that so many of us who are light workers or empaths or highly sensitive beings, when we were that age, 14, 15, 16, wanted to do the same thing for others, but no one taught us how to do it safely and protect our energy and our light. So I showed her a music video, right? Because I don't think talking about this with a 13-year-old is really going to make the case. Her parents tried, it failed. There's a music video that shows a ballerina, and it's in Spanish because I like Spanish music. Anyone who knows me knows that I got a thing for either tango or Latin music. And it is the heartbreak love story of a man realizing that he was kind of an asshole. And there's a ballerina in the background. And in the beginning, when he's talking about messing up and causing pain, she's dancing in a white outfit and a white tutu, and she's looking like you picture a ballerina. But then as the music video goes on and the song gets a little bit deeper and darker, she switches her outfit into black, and there's tears streaming down her face. Her hair is a mess, and she's no longer wearing the pristine white outfit. And so I show her this video, and I said to her, would you like to stay in the light, or do you feel like you're already in the dark? And she said to me, I'd like to stay in the light, but I don't know how. She then went on to explain that her energy gets fatigued, but that she still loves him. She said that she really wants to help him because he's smart and comes from a broken family and really doesn't have a ton of support, and she wants to be someone who can be supportive to him. She says that he tries really hard to be respectful to her. And I listened to this, the next generation talking about compassion and love and kindness. And I had a complete epiphany that we are not preparing this generation who's walking already into that place of light and kind of just an awakened state. They were born this way. We are not teaching these highly sensitive teens how to take care of themselves so they can continue to care for people in their community, and how to make discerning choices in their personal relationships. There is not one source of information related to sex education that would be helpful from an energetic perspective. There is not one source of information from traditional psychology that's going to help her understand her anxiety from an energetic perspective. We are crossing a threshold that was started with the work by Dr. Judith Orloff about empaths and energy. And we now need to start teaching these magnificent teenagers how to use their energy appropriately. And the biggest fear that is lurking in our culture is the fear that is connected to the use of sexual energy. And for far too long, sexual energy has been tried to be controlled by men or other dominating figures, but mostly men throughout history, simply because women have forgotten how powerful their creative energy is. And the reason for that is because we actually train teenage girls to be scared of it. So this client is a very good example of an artist and a dancer who has that energy, who has that ability to bring goodness to the world. And we are basically throwing her out into battle with no tools or gifts to help her stay in the light and to keep her magical. And that doesn't make the world a better place. So I am incubating something called Magical Unicorn School. And it's going to be aimed at teenage girls. And I am going to teach alongside eventually a whole host of other people, mostly healers and people who do energy work and who are artists and actors and musicians who can help with the healing process from a fun way. Teach these skills so that by the time they go to college, they have the full power to really voice their opinions and to say yes or no. For far too long, we have definitely lost our magic. And so we're going to go back to Bobby, because Bobby right now looks like just like a horse because he's lost his magic. But Bobby used to be a magical unicorn. And magical unicorns represent the divine feminine energy. And it's time that we give this next generation the opportunity to come back to life and to experience magic and to use their gifts to make this world a better place. So that's the project I'm incubating, and I will definitely keep you updated as we kind of continue incubating and figuring out what we're going to do with Magical Unicorn School. But if you have any ideas, if you have any thoughts, if you want to collaborate, if you just want to talk about magic in your own life. I had an adult woman in her 30s last week crying because she felt like magic has disappeared. When we talk about magic, we're talking about divine feminine energy, our intuition, our belief that we can create the life we want or that we can make the world a better place. And we need to kind of get back to those roots. We need to remember. We need to have some balance. We can't be in our left brain all day long. It's making us incredibly unhappy. And so I hope that you enjoyed listening to my story. And I hope that you have some ideas for Magical Unicorn School, because I might put out the vision, but I believe that this project is going to get built by Gen Z themselves. So I hope you have a magical day, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you for listening. Bye.